Mike Gill and Qrash.
Hi there. How are you? Or should I ask?
I know. She always asks and she always knows the answer.
Yeah.
But we're determined, both of us. Now, the last podcast, we took you from December 18th, the Oval Office, and General Flynn and Sidney Powell and Patrick Burns, and we took you through the settlement in a Department of Justice. Could you show that cover, Qrash? And if you look, we went through the evidence of the Department of Justice that it had the settlement, that Flynn knew to ask for it. He also asked for those letters. And those letters were the intercepted communications with the IRS, the sealed envelopes with Titka, the Treasury Inspector General. Okay? So it was an IRS Treasury Inspector General cover up, even plants in my office on recording from the Inspector General. But that evidence Flynn requested from the Oval Office. Who took that evidence from me? Andrew Lulland, United States attorney that represented all of New England. Okay, the most powerful U.S. attorney in this country, and he gives it to the AG. Okay, Qrash. All right. So that took you there. That's what that podcast did. Now, that was evidence, hard evidence. Why did Flynn reach out on December 18th from that Oval Office? Why did he ask for that settlement if it wasn't Pandora's box? And then what else did he ask for? You can throw up the two screenshots, Qrash. Again, on December 18th. And you'll see the screenshot where he asked for the settlement for the text messages. Okay, so there you see General Flynn be getting a call. And I did get a call from Jim Tesseroro. But, okay, next screen, you'll see after the settlement, at the settlement there too, but you see the affidavit. Okay, or you can take that down, Qrash. Now, that was a 15-page affidavit that I'm going to share with you at the end of this, page at a time. So you're going to see the representation of what I gave Flynn again on December 18th. So you're going to have to understand the Department of Justice knew what I had. They reached out to Flynn on December 18th, and you can show that Jack Smith image, Qrash, on December 18th, because that was the implementation day. Flynn and his traveling morons was corrupting the audits in Arizona and Colorado and Michigan, right? To go to Lynn Woods, to turn around and formulate an insurrection plot by the DOJ in its instrumentation of that. Jack Smith, who was prosecuting Trump at that very time, said that he owned a lawyer in that room. That's Sidney Powell. And my communications were also with her office manager, Teresa, who reached out too. Same thing. In fact, the affidavit came from her office. Now, so Flynn, that at that point, reached out and then wanted that, and you'll see it in text. In fact, let's show one of those emails where they requested it right away. It's in the series that we have it. We'll step through it. So Carissa's saying, hey, get us an email.
I'm not sure which one. I can't see which is which.
All right, you know what? Hit me with that. Okay, no, I'm sorry. Go to the affidavit, Qrash. That's on me.
Oh, okay. The affidavit. Well, the first page
Yeah,
of
first page of the affidavit. So this is what they wanted to have me sign with the affidavit. This is what they sent to me. No, I'm sorry, Qrash. The request for the affidavit in the format. That's on me.
Okay.
You know where it says General Flynn wants you to put out this declaration?
You mean the email that we can't read?
Yes, that.
Okay. I can't read it, so.
All right. Well, Carissa sends that over. What you'll see is the format for the affidavit that they requested. I put it in handwritten because I didn't want pages missing or replaced or said that I said something that they typed differently. So it was all in my handwriting. But this is what they're requested from that right after I got that text messages. Okay.
Is your copy more clear on your iPad, or because all I can read is what we need in a very detailed signed declaration from you, and it cuts it off. It tells.
I'll post up a clearer copy.
Okay.
But I do have one. All right. But see, that turns around and says, okay, Flynn wants the affidavit. Now, let's take the screenshot. Now, what we've got to do now is, here's the request. And remember now, on December 18th, they were moving on what I had under the instructions of the Department of Justice. So what we're taking you is from that Department of Justice to December 18th to Flynn, and then we're going to take you to his podcasts all the way to Arizona with the brokered convention, but a step at a time with evidence, indisputable each time. Okay, hit the next screenshot. Now, these are communications that will verify. I'll try to read them on mine.
Because I can't go any bigger or I'm going to cut it all off.
No, I got it.
Okay. I don't know if they're in order. I put them in.
Okay, let me see. Okay, you so much. Which email has your written declaration in it? I need to start by sending that to and I remember what it was said, our team. Okay, you can hit the next one. All right, so now they sent me that. Now they're looking for a copy.
Okay, that one should be next.
Okay. If you have typed up declaration that I need before all supporting pieces. Okay, so I'm sending her evidence and so forth. She needs this declaration first. Okay, hit it, Qrash. Look like it's coming through. Okay. Yeah. So in other words, the declaration, they sent it to me, the formatted. I turned around, signed it, and put a 15-page affidavit that I'm going to go over with you. But this is those communications. All right, hit it, Qrash. The next one. This is that Testorero. He was a captain. In fact, if you have a picture of him with Seth Ketchel, who is Carissa Ketchel's husband. Maybe you don't have it. I'm not sure. There it is. The guy in the middle is Seth Ketchel. And that Jim that I was dealing with multiple times on the phone for hours and hours is the little guy on the right. All right? These are all Flintsters. Now, when I met, you can take that down. Understand this. I didn't seek out Flynn, just like I didn't seek out O'Keefe and Day. I was helping Flynn here to save Trump's presidency. So in other words, I knew if he could leverage them with their money, like I'm saying, audit the Senate. What do you think we're going to find? Audit the Congress. This information and evidence opens that door to be able to get that done. That itself could have saved Trump, could have leveraged them. And you know what? The DOJ thinks that too, which is why they sent them all, including Flynn, and why these podcasters try to keep me in place and tried to flip me as they all have. Okay, you know what? What was the other thing? All right, hit it. Was the other one the first page of the affidavit? Qrash, is that next?
Yeah, that's next. It's
okay.
I can put them all up at once and do a slideshow, but I'm afraid I'll get out of order. So
yeah, it has to be in order. So I'm going to try to do the best I can.
That's what I figured.
Was that your computer?
That's the iPad talking to me.
Okay, I was going to say, what was that?
I never heard it before.
Oh, well.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just say this while he's looking, he's going to have to read from his iPad. And
yeah,
this is a 15-page declaration.
Yes.
So it's going to be a little long, but
well, I'll try to do the best I
yeah,
can
do
get
best you
through
can,
it.
and he'll probably paraphrase, but it gets a little blurrier or sloppier as it goes. So you can screenshot these as I put them up or whatever you want to do, but this is what he gave Flynn.
Okay. Let's go over. Now, understand this. Ready? This was on that day, December 18th. In fact, you'll see that this is dated at the end. I'm in Orlando during COVID, where all these hotels were empty, as cheap as I could get it. No one had my number, but a guy named Gammy Vasquez, who was my last videographer, and they snatched him up. And that's how the DOJ got my number through the FBI. And that's how Flynn reached out to me. So understand, even doing this here and then, I had to take a shot. I had to take a chance that they were legitimate, even though I've learned not to trust any of them. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, you didn't really know who Flynn was. You were hoping that he was honest, as we all were.
Right. They reached out to me to
So,
save Trump. And I knew after the election, Trump was in trouble. Yeah, I knew Trump was in trouble before the election. You see me do those videos. You
right.
see me do it from the Department of Justice in Washington. I told you what was going to happen. I told them all what's going to happen. They were waiting for Barr and Durham to save them.
Yeah.
That's the DOJ. Who do you think snatched them? All right. This is a signed declaration pursuant to SC Section 1746. And again, you'll see what they sent me is formatted to reference that section. I, Michael Gill, make the following declaration. I lived in New Hampshire 60 of my 64 years. Well, now I'm 69. From New Hampshire, I built the highest volume brokerage firm in the United States. This was recognized and awarded by Fannie Mae. They used my interviews and training seminars across the country. I am expert in the mortgage industry. I also own the largest thoroughbred racing stable in the world. It's almost funny even to hear it. Was anyone won more races than anyone in history? These worlds collided by involving money laundering and the protection by organized crime, which is also your government and the protection of the DOJ. And again, this is before Pandora Papers. I'm giving you the box. I'm giving you the box of December of 20. Pandora Papers didn't come out till October of 21. I'm spelling it out. Okay. Victims of the world collided, both money laundering and protected, organized crime. In 2006, victims of a Ponzi scheme called FRM, Financial Resource Management, approached me as a group. Over 400 victims. What I found was by their lawyer, Bill Shaheen.
He was, in fact, the owner.
Right. He was actually pretending to be their lawyer. I threat to use my language. Alex Walker, the presidents of both law firms. Okay, so that's one. Bill Shaheen is Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. We opened the door to the Clintons, Sununu to the Bushes. And what did I turn around and say? FRM? You know what reminds me of? A Ponzi scheme. It reminds me of what's going to happen to thousands of people who invested in this gold with these podcasters when all of a sudden starts gold coming down. Did anybody notice that gold's coming down? Right. And then what happens when all of a sudden recession and you need money to survive and they're going to keep half? You know those FRM people? When the stock market, when the 2008, when the real estate market crashed, so did they.
Can I ask you something about gold? Have
Yes.
on Rumble, have you seen Don Jr.'s ad for the Birch Gold? Have you seen that, actually watched it in a video yet? You have,
No.
okay, well, it pops up in the videos as you're watching, and I usually skip over those, but I watched his, and he said you have to like look it up, or watch one and see it one time. But he said July, he was naming it a month, and he said July is when a lot of stuff's going to happen or could happen. So I don't know what he knows, but I'm curious because I can't record it because you don't know when it's going to come. I want to record it, but I can't
No,
find it.
don't they call that insider trading?
Well, I'm not sure what, I don't know.
Well, Daddy's the president. That's
Right.
about as inside as you want to get. You know what? This stuff with crypto and all this other stuff, just as we're walking in. See, here's what me and Qrash were talking about before. I told you to watch the 10-year bond market. The stock market isn't all you. The 10-year bond is 4.97 today, almost 450 with there's a threshold point, which is if you break that, you got real trouble,
No, it's not.
right?
Not 4.97. You scared me for a minute there. It's 4.49, right?
Right. I'm
Okay,
sorry,
okay,
right.
okay.
So it's almost 4.5. Thanks, Crash. It's almost 4.5. But
Sorry.
that is a threshold number. From there, you go to 3/4. Those are testing numbers. That's why all these retailers are going out of business. Restaurants are going out of business. Box stores like pharmacies going out of business because that commercial rate, those are all on demand notes and are going up to 11, 12%. They can't afford it. That's Main Street, not Wall Street. That's you. That's your credit card. That's your refinance. And if you can't refinance and you can't sell, so does your value of your properties find the bottom of the market. And that's where we are. And that's what they're not telling you, all because they ripped you off. That's why the bonds are up, because you're a bad risk. What are they doing? Musk is cutting expenses. That's what you got to do. Trump's doing the tariffs because he needs revenue. Because we've let all these people rob us blind, steal us blind. Now we're broke. Now they're panicking, saying, "Oh, we got to do this. We got to do this. Screw with the stock market." Why? Because that's the situation there. We're paying interest only. If this is 30 trillion in debt, this is what it means, right? We aren't even at a point where that we're out of deficit in that year. So every year we're going to owe more. How are you going to make up 37 trillion? Your children won't live long enough to pay that money off. That's what they stole from you. That's why you go get their shit. All right.
Yeah.
Just my theory. Page 2. I'm going to try to do. You gotta remember, I got to read my own shit. Walker, I considered a friend. Alex Walker was the president of the largest law firm. He told me to leave it alone. He knew it was Shaheen. In fact, it was Walker Shaheen close to prosecute Hildreth, the banking commissioner. Meaning, Hildreth, the banking commissioner, had his brothers on the Ponzi scheme, and they were all partners with Shaheen. Walker's telling me, don't open that door. You know why they didn't want that door of the banking commissioner open? Because if you open it, you get the deep state money laundering network across the world. That's what you mean. That's Jerry Little before that. Hildreth and his brothers. I reported to Assistant AG Perlow. Perlow, who worked with Ayotte, who Ayotte is now the governor. Perlow, who was the Assistant AG, once I gave him the Ponzi scheme, became the banking commissioner. It was one giant cover up by the AG's office, which is how they control your courts. It's those AGs that become judges. Okay. Not only did anything, because the new banking commissioner, Perlow was an environmental lawyer. He wasn't even a banker. It was a cover up. Hildreth's got a golden parachute. Work warned me again and reporting and talking to the victims. John Kakavas, right? Walker's best friend, who's the United States attorney out of New Hampshire. Walker's connection with the Department of Justice. Just like Bill Shaheen, what was he before? The U.S. Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is ass deep in all of it. They are the head of this corruption. U.S. Attorney prosecuted FRM, Kakavas. You know what they had? His partner was Howard before that. They were all partners. Mark Howard, his partner before, was a complete setup. Gasarich sent me a target letter to warn me. Yeah. And you know what? I did it on video. I went to the United States. You can hit the next one, Qrash. United States Attorney Kakavas, just to tell him I was putting his ass in jail. Now, it's all on recording. He thought it was funny at the time. Maybe not so much now. Okay. So now remember, now this is what I'm giving Flynn. Flynn's blackmailing these bastards. Now, are they blackmailing Trump? Are they blackmailing the DOJ not to go after Flynn? Listen, the world's run, particularly this country, by blackmail and extortion. Now, I only had them by their money and all the players who are on a 50 million settlement. Walker and Shaheen stepped up their extortion for my silence, going after my banking license in the IRS. I had releases they wanted me to sign. Make issue go away. I had to be quiet. I knew the banking department was dangerous to them. I went to the FBI, physically threatened me in front of my son under camera. See, the first time I went to the FBI, I didn't bring a cameraman. And then two of them tried to intimidate me, and that didn't work. It got my son a little nervous. It got them a little nervous too. But from then on in, we brought cameras. He was a friend of my wife. He told her to have stopped by. They will take everything. I was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I still refuse. Walker and Shaheen gave her one of the lawyers to file for the divorce. My wife wasn't divorcing me until they said, hey, we're going to take his shit. Want us to take your shit? When you have a lot of shit, innocent spouse, at the same time, the IRS called to audit. The IRS, right? Let's not audit the Senate, right? They'll audit you. Shaheen controlled. Tim Powell, the manager of the Portmas office, called me and said it was case. He was retiring after 33 years. You know who she told me gave him the case? Senator Jean Shaheen. You know what she got cited for? Targeting people with the IRS. Understand? The IRS is money laundering and targeting their enemies. Okay. What page are we on, Qrash? Is that 4?
That was 3.
3.
The next one will be 4.
Okay. Thank you with that. He went on to say, he did piss off. I said, Bill Shaheen. He held it was Gene Shaheen. And look out. He didn't want this. Powell is on the releases. Tim Powell, the manager for the IRS, is on the releases for the 50 million. Powell of the IRS didn't want to deal with this, targeting me. He knew why they were doing was targeting me for my silence and didn't want to get pulled into it. But he was retiring. They threatened him with his retirement. They extend millions of affidavits of family court, over 10 million. Price keeps going up to expose. I starting a platform for justice called State of Corruption. I was meeting victims across the state, finding corruption throughout the state, from family court to drug cartel, corrupt judges, and a network of judges working for Shaheen as the FBI and the DOJ. That's how they get them, from the DOJ and the state AG's office. I have the evidence. They reopened the mail by hand, fully documented. I was contacted by the law offices of Morris Mahoney, a premier firm. Nick Alexander. Okay. So that's what happened there. What happened was they wanted me to settle, but they wanted to give me the law firm to control it. Morris and Mahoney, you could take that down, Qrash, if you want. Morris Mahoney was a large law firm, very prestigious. Their biggest customer was Liberty Mutual. Part of this control of your courts is the pharmaceutical industry, banks. But it's also maybe highest on the list is the insurers. That's how they cheat you every time. Liberty Mutual was representing Shaheen and Walker. They're the ones who wanted to pay me $50 million. Morris Mahoney worked for this Liberty Mutual. It was an inside job because they didn't want anybody else to see it. That's why that $50 million was the first thing that Flynn asked for. Now, he wouldn't have known to ask for that unless the DOJ, like Llewellyn, said, hey, listen, schmuck, make sure you get that from Gill. He got it. He explained they had FBI contacts. This is this guy, Nick Alexander. We're going to take it to the FBI. Hey, listen, I wasn't looking for their money. I was looking for their skulls. That's what I told them. FBI. Listen, Stacy Burke's trying to sue Flynn. I'm trying to put him in jail. There's your difference. He explained if the statement is prepared on my phone. I have the recording covered up. Insurance, mutual, fraud. John Friedman, who worked with the same client, told me. So Friedman was the other lawyer who sat on the bar of overseers, who was working with me against the banking department, wanted to pay me $50 million, and he's connected to the United States Attorney's Office, Ortiz, and he's the bar association. He was supposed to turn them in. In writing, he said that they had done wrong. But again, if they open that door, that's the money laundering network. That gets you into the banking department, banking commissioner, Department of Revenue, IRS, TITCA. That's it. Okay. He was recovering for the banking department. Lawyer with the banking. Friedman was set on to the bar of overseers. Marisa Pursuta was a lawyer working with Horace Mahoney and for me. And we sat with Friedman. I would have the page repeat. Morris Mahoney was committing fraud in a cover-up, and she afforded the thing. Okay, you can hit the next page. Now, Marisa Pursuta was the 44-page report. Again, you can go back and read it, but you see it on the Department of Justice evidence list with Llewellyn. What she is saying is Morris Mahoney committed malpractice, Liberty Mutual committed fraud. All these other lawyers do it. And she's turning around and wants to send it. See, there we go on to, well, we met with Friedman. Friedman is neighbors with Carmen Ortiz. Carmen Ortiz was the United States attorney before Llewellyn. Llewellyn replaced her, and it was rigged, and rigged by Friedman too. Like U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz, John Friedman was found a number of Friedman confirmed, Ortiz confirmed. Marisa was sent to move. The point of, let me see, Morris offered a settlement of $50 million.
Was scared. She was scared to move forward.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the best. I seen the settlement, all the releases with the attorneys, the paralegals, the employees of the company, most importantly, the IRS, Department of Revenue, Banking Department, Bill Shaheen, Alex Walker. I had the complete method of laundering. These were the key players, all that audited, all that protected. Who did Walker go back to? Kakavas, the Department of Justice. Who did Shaheen go back to? He goes back to the United States Attorney himself at the Department of Justice. Who's protecting Clintons and the Bushes all this time in the corruption? Department of Justice. It was the methodology of laundering. Audit. Every entry of audit. What did Musk do and scare everybody? Oh, we're going to audit everybody. Hello? Gene Shaheen suddenly retired. It was the complete methodology of laundering. Every audit, the banking department was dangerous. They opened the door to the laundering, the protection of the deep state. Now remember, 5 years ago, before Pandora Papers, what did Pandora Papers call out? $1 trillion in New Hampshire, called out the banking department, called out auto fare, the recovery, Granite State recovery. All the entries that I told you was owned by the cartel was in the Pandora Papers. How important, $1 million law firm committed fraud and the loss of his license. Okay. So in other words, why would a multi-billion-dollar law firm commit such egregious fraud that the two principals of the law firm are on the settlement? Why would they take a chance to lose everything? Remember now, we're going to have the Preakness this weekend, so it's gambling. So it's risk versus gain. So in other words, if you have an opportunity, you have a situation where you could lose billions, why are you fucking him over? For whatever that is, it's got to be worth more. You don't sacrifice this unless you're protecting something bigger.
Right.
Billions, bigger? Big enough to send O'Keefe and the Mossad and Fat Boy Day and General Flynn and his morons and a chain of podcasters. And I mean, what a trip. Okay, page 7. I was continue to confront, have video deposition of a paralegal married to the mob. Remember Married to the Mob? I told you the cartel and the mob, and the molds that was in it. We showed you that podcast. But again, that's another 50 million. And I go on. Again, Liberty Mutual wanted to pay me 25. And Penn National and the racetrack wanted to pay me another 25 million. That's 50. You know what the deal was going to be? Listen, I'm a negotiator. I was going to say, hey, Liberty was going to pay me 50 before this. I'll take your 50 and I'll take your 25. That's 75. No, that's what they wanted me to say. I told them to go stuff it, both of them. And right after that, they tried to murder my ass. That's what happens when you can't be bought. I call out money laundering with race fixing. How do you like that? The racetracks and the cartels fixing races offshore, coming back into, the Pandora's box. Penn was buying Rockingham Park. It was going to be a giant casino. Except for I called out the casino a win, made the newspapers, and attracted to these morons, and they had to cancel the deal. I was seeing Penn National. Their lawyers were from Mississippi. Hiram Eastman.
Sorry, Mike. You said you were not suing Penn National.
Right.
Yeah, because you said I was seeing Penn National. I just want to.
No, I'm sorry. No,
some of that's like important, I think. Like,
you keep watching me. Right. I was never suing. Listen, I've never asked any of them for any money. I was never suing Penn National. And then their lawyers from Mississippi. I had copies of the Mississippi, and I showed those emails in deposition, which all sworn deposition. Turns out the paralegal's husband was one of the principals in the Costa Nostra, as in the Boston Front Page Globe, working with Steve Wynn, who resigned. I'm telling you, you can find a better story than this. Okay, here, Qrash. Hard to believe. Front page Boston Globe. They all wanted to take the money. All of the deposit. Attorney Barrington, my lawyer, was working for Shaheen. All the attorneys. You see all the deposition? I mean, all the releases? Attorneys, accountants, all of them. Barrington. And you see emails with the settlements going back and forth. James Wheat represented Alex Walker. He said he didn't blame me for not taking their money. And look at the word, global settlement. I sent these emails. Global settlement? You know how many documents they wanted to keep or destroy? 18,184. Now, I refuse. The Office of the Treasury Inspector General, TITCA. The Office of the Treasury? The Inspector General? Right. He's on the phone. Right. They were intercepting my mail. Tom Morley, the TITCA agent. Has Tom Morley I mean, Curtis Morley, the accountant intercepting my mail. You see all the envelopes closed. And all of that goes back to Llewellyn, the Department of Justice, on the evidence list. Mail fraud, IRS extortion. They're holding it when I'm thinking we're having a 3-year investigation of the worst case of money laundering in history, and the Treasury is covering up for the IRS. And listen, there's no question of it. We even recorded the asshole. And guess what? Recorded Aaron Day working with James O'Keefe. Did that slip his mind? Have you noticed how Flynn's coming into power? Did you notice how O'Keefe's coming into power? You see? James, Alex Jones. These were all these people that were all connected and had reached out to me. Why? Okay. IRS letter over 20 sent by Curtis Morley. I've never had to talk to him. Okay. So all those envelopes were sealed, meaning the intention, Curtis Morley didn't want to get charged with mail fraud, which I think he's going to because it's still intercepted mine, but he didn't want to open it. Not opening it made Llewellyn call me because he knew I had the recording. You know why? Because I posted the recording on the internet of the Inspector General. Llewellyn reaches out and goes, I need those envelopes. I gave him no envelopes. My son was there. We're on recording. And I said, listen, I'll put you in jail or I'll make you famous. And I don't give a shit which one. And that ain't no joke. And you'll see follow-up letters and so forth with Llewellyn. But that's when Llewellyn turned around and said, I'm not keeping this. The Department of Justice, Llewellyn knew what that was. He got appointed by Trump weeks before. Trump just gave him the job of his lifetime. The first thing he did was cover up what could have saved him, which is why Llewellyn was a little nervous. And I made a point to make him extra nervous.
I have a question before you go to the next.
Yeah.
So Tom.
But I'm reading this sideways, so this go anywhere.
I know. Tom Morley.
Yes.
Was assigned to your case.
As a TITCA agent.
Yeah. And Curtis was who was somebody
I never met.
Okay, but he was intercepting the mail, but you thought they were investigating the
I was working with Tom Morley and McDowell. And they would work for 3 years. I was sending evidence every week, 2 weeks, month, every week for 3 years. I mean, could fill a tractor trailer on the IRS and all what we're having. And then one day with Aaron Day, that FedEx envelope comes in and I open it and it's 22 envelopes from the IRS that were all sealed. I go, what the fuck? And it said, who's Curtis Morley? And what do?
Oh.
I called Tom Morley. I go, you won't believe this. I just found all these letters and it says Curtis Morley. You don't know what Curtis Morley, do you, Tom? And Tom goes, I can never talk to you again.
Right. Okay. So they were, that's the 18,000 documents. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's just part of it. 18 document. That was to cover up that happened after the 18,000 document. So Jesus only knows how many documents we got now. Oh my
gosh. Okay. So right. Took all of that.
And when I said no to the IRS in the settlement, they had to run a cover up. That was the DOJ. That's the FBI. That's the Inspector General's office. That's the Treasury Inspector General. It was a race, right? To get to the Inspector General. He forgot to hang up the phone. We recorded him. Aaron Day recorded him. We have the Inspector General flat out. They can't say anything about it.
I got it now. I was not sure how that all played out with Tom and Curtis, but now I got
it. All right. I got 10. So Curtis Morley had the same
last name.
It's the same last name. I called Tom, as I just been saying, right? And he said that after saying it was the worst corruption he's ever seen, the IRS, his phone, he's calling Tim Campus. Tim Campus was the Inspector General of the Treasury right then. And again, Aaron Day was the one recording it next to me. So in other words, that's also O'Keefe. I sent nothing. This is what they were saying. I gave him nothing. I said nothing. This was my agent for 3 years, Tom Morley, saying to the Inspector General, I gave him nothing. I said nothing. It was a giant cover up. And then they go on to say, we have a plant in his office. It was only the controller. And ain't that funny, right? You know, my son's business, the controller, stole almost $1 million from him. Isn't that funny? Just
That's
like me.
That's a recent article in the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like they put their controller in with my son just to see if there was any contact. And while they're there, they just steal whatever you got. Inspector General Henry Day recorded it. This recording is on YouTube. Same thing with James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. You see, this is before all this was coming up. Day followed was a prominent figure. Let me see, Republican National Committee. They find out O'Keefe. Okay, get the next one. Am I on number 9?
You're on 10 now. 10. This would be.
Okay.
O'Keefe was buying politicians, I think is what.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Day by Bedford Town Manager. Dave came into me with Town Manager Mike Gill. I also met with Day and them Congressman Ginta. They all know who the cartel is. Bedford Gill, Ross Moldoff was the town manager before, and the cartel murdered him. He was investigating Anagos. To related questioning, Specky went to Day for protection because his son wouldn't be murdered. They spoke to the state senators, so forth, and Shaheen and Anagos. What happened was Specky's son was working with Alex Anagos, both from Bedford. Anagos's son, the cartel, would a tractor trailer full of heroin, fentanyl, and machine guns, and they let him go. So all of a sudden, Specky, the town manager, is afraid his son is a witness, he's going to murder him. So what do? They come to me. They spoke to the state, told Shaheen, got from 6 separate witnesses and state troopers, right. Specky was afraid, and they came to me. The witnesses were 6 separate arresting state troopers. Okay, I just had something blocked on the screen. I have witness from 6 state troopers. Okay, so in other words, we had witnesses. Those 6 state troopers were arresting Anagos each and every time separately. So it's not like all on the same case. They arrested him 6 different times, and some of them multiple times. Okay, so we're at number 11. Again, I go to the FBI with videos. I also go to the DEA. Now I have all this evidence. I'm documenting and videotaping. Listen, now this is all this shit I'm telling Flynn. Now remember now, all of this documented evidence here we're talking about is being sent to them in evidence. And that'll be the next podcast. We'll go over the evidence that I sent them. Okay. Drug cartel. It's the biggest drug cartel in history. An 80,000-pound capacity tractor trailer full of fentanyl. The largest seizure was 204 pounds before that. They were just bragging how they got 22 kilos, and that's 2.2 pounds per kilo. So what are we talking about? 11, 22, 24 pounds? Congratulations, assholes. I only pulled up tons. The DOA, Jack Riley, came to New Hampshire, called us the ground zero for opioids in the country, protected by businessmen. This is the head of the DEA. Trump, several for Sununu was money laundering evidence, leveraged the corrupt. Little was the banking commissioner, little was the state senator who passed the bill never to audit the state, if the banking department, if you trust them. All right. 12. I'm running out of juice here, so we better get this done. You may have to. And you know how hard I am to charge this baby.
I know.
Not have an audit. Get out of jail free card, right? See, that's what they do. Shaheen's Sununu's boy becomes the banking commissioner. As the state senator, he gets a bill that says we don't have to audit if we trust you. He only trusts you if you're filthy and dishonest. Shaheen and their bank, cartel banks. The cartel had primary bank, the only bank to open in the United States over an 8-year period of time. You think somebody might have said, hey, after 8 years, these are the only people open it? It was a drug bank. Canceled family finance ski resort. Oh, Sununu. They only financed the ski resort from 3 terrorist group. And then we had the Turkish Cultural Center. I had 3 murder attempts in 13 days. 2 were on video. Murder for recorded conversations with the hitman. U.S. Attorney Lullen can verify this evidence. Proof. Only with Titka cover-up operation. I can post the undeniable video and recording. Day and O'Keefe were working on cover-up for the cartel.
I just want to ask, it says Sununu, the family financed the ski resort that with a terrorist group that was tied to 9/11?
Yeah, 3 of them. Front page of the Breitbart, by the way, too. When I was running for them.
Are they from Israel? Who are these?
No, literally Saudi terrorist groups. 3 of them financed the family ski resort.
Okay.
Oh, no. And listen, Breitbart put that out, not even me. But I knew about it, just like I knew about his copper mines in Colombia. They witnessed one of the attempts and got scared. When the guy came in and had the gun to my face, Day was in the room, and after that, he freaked out. Listen, Day and O'Keefe are sniveling cowards, and both gay. Not there's anything wrong with that, but it's just not who they pretend to be. Shaheen asked him to give up witnesses in the cartel and release. And that's what they did. They gave up all our witnesses. He did just that. He is in danger of being killed as a witness. It gets better. Shaheen used Day suddenly for an independent run against Ayot and Hassan. Hassan was owned by Shaheen. He paid for Day's mailers, multiple all over the state. They had no money. I helped him survive financially. Shaheen fixed the Senate. They got 17, mostly because of the connection with me and state of corruption. Ayot lost by less than 1,000. What happened? You can take that down. What happened was the deal was for Day to run to take the votes from Ayot to get Hassan. Hassan's been a senator since 2016 because of that move with Day. That was the payoff. And Day comes out and said it, and it's been in the paper that that's exactly what he did. And admits to it. Are we on 15 now?
It should be 14.
That was I'm on 14 now?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to find 14.
Not organized, are you?
Never have been.
You had people to do that for you.
Damn right. I'm somebody who steers the ship. Tells you where you're gonna go. Don't ask me to get there though. Okay, oh, son of a bitch. It's 15. 14. We found it before this thing does. I got 7%. Shaheen in the cartel
And
came
Gordon.
to me to settle. Gordon, right. Came to me to settle. Took by using the method of fixing the courts. See, we got a problem with the courts. How are they running Trump through the courts? The same way people wanted to give me 50 million. That was the exact how it works. The evidence against the IRS opened the door to the Department of Revenue, whether opened the door to the cartel. My properties are
Untraced?
knowing that I must be saying they took the property. So Chicka Bank Commission number wanted to settle. I've got 4 Chicka accounts that they wanted to pay me off. Again, the way in is the way out. Chicka knew that that was the problem because Chicka gets the IRS, that gets into the cover up to everything. That's why coming through Chicka, and believe me, they still will. I have a case number. Marco Sorelli asked me the question, does Trump know? Does Trump know? Exactly right. You know when Chicka wanted to settle? The thing they wanted to know the most was, did I tell Trump this Trump tried my evidence? And do you know when that was? A few months before General Flynn. So when I tell you they were on my evidence, they were on my evidence even right then. That was Marco Sorelli. And I have those text messages. And I've had posted them too. All right, let's hit 15 before this thing goes to sleep. Man, I hate this thing. Oh, there it is. Okay. They are threatening my children. My son had an operation. He was at least checking on. I can tell you what happened in this operation. I wanted to go. My son said that, don't come, Dad. They have their foot and their heel on my throat. They have someone watching the visitor's log. Just like when my father died, they had people at the funeral. That's what we're talking. They're checking on the law. I went to Boston to confront the Boston FBI and U.S. Attorney Lelland when traveling by phone. Recently, a friend accepted. There's not much more I can do. Multiple issued. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I hereby swear everything that I stated is the absolute truth, so help me God. I accept any penalties of perjury, Michael Gill. What I did was, after the 3 weeks, I turned around and started thinking, you know what? This was a setup with Flynn, the whole thing. I drove to Boston from Florida. Was going to confront the Boston FBI and the Department of Justice, but I wanted a camera. That was Audra too. And then all of a sudden, Audra Troop flips out. I knew that they'd let her go, and he was working for the Department of Justice. They got her through Howley. And guess who? Roger fucking Stone and General Flynn. They are trying to change the narrative of who and what I've done. They have to. That's what's being done. So in other words, I will show you text messages next podcast where you see me with the Boston FBI, the Department of Justice, the state police, and talking to this Jim Testororo of Flynn's guy, saying, guess what, Jim? I'm going to be here reporting all you assholes. Don't do that, Mike.
And that makes sense why no one's like putting out your information, because if they want you to go away, they need everybody to forget your story. You know,
they all know where it goes. Fact is, didn't they the ones who told you all these podcasts to tell you who I was? I didn't tell you I was the #1 whistleblower of all time, all this. Gonna make movies of me here and there. They told you who I was. How'd they know? They knew because Flynn knew. They all knew. If they could flip me, then I could support you. Then I am Pandora's box. Blackmail and extortion. What did they blackmail Hunter Biden with me? That's the baby mama payoff. That's what they're doing now. All this evidence I have, and even being alive still, scares them. But that trip to Arizona, that was a one-way trip, and we're going to go over that. But you understand now, as high as Flynn goes now. I mean, we got Patel. Have you guys noticed that we've got social media, between social media and Fox News, it's making up 90% of the justice heads? I mean, what we got? We got Hero, who just got the United States Attorney, DC Attorney. You know who that was before? Jack Smith. That's where he just went, right. And then they turn around, got Bongino, who's made millions. We got Patel, which they're wondering, hey, how's this asshole showing up at this fight, this entertainment, this ball game? Because they're actors. They need you to see them. They little sign butts like, we're going to get somebody. Nobody goes. Nobody gets caught. And all this stuff is a smoke show. Still, you're broke. And I'm getting a little nervous that Elon Musk is getting quieter. I think they turn around and really hammered him between destroying cars, not buying in Europe. His sales crashed like 60%. But that's the punishment. But it's also, if you're committed, you got to go all the way. You've got to say to yourself, I'm prepared to die. Let's roll it. Let's see where we go. We just keep saying no. All those years I kept saying no. You imagine if I said yes, my life would be a little bit better.
Yeah, a lot better.
Right. Shit, I'm eating popcorn.
So, yeah.
But see, the truth's in sacrifice. How many of these people got rich? I'm watching Michelle Moore the other day. She has an extravaganza. I mean, it's an infomercial. And what is the claim to fame? I'm a prophet. I'm talking to the Holy Spirit. It has prophets on. How many prophets are there? Yet she'll sell you gold. We'll handle that. We're going to take you through those podcasters and some of that evidence that ties back to Flynn, like Elvire saying he works for Flynn. That goes back to Seth Ketchel. That goes back to Carissa. That goes back to J6, which that meathead was there, remember? And he gives like he's smoking a doobie in the Capitol. Bullshit. He's doing a screenshot, a little photo op. But they're all getting a little quiet. You notice that?
Yeah.
Good.
They're sticking to their either the Q narrative or the things that they've been talking about for the last, I don't know. They're Flynn. I mean, Flynn's like the topic.
What they have, it's the white hats, it's the black hats. It's one side or the other. Here's the thing, you ready? Where are they going? What's the plan?
A lot of them.
What do we want to achieve?
And gold. A lot of them are talking about the money. So,
right. Hey, listen. We just played play to win the last one, right? I'm showing you evidence that puts them in check. Flynn can't go further with this. The higher they climb the tree, the more the monkey sees their asses. Well, guess what? We're laying all this out. They can't walk away from that. That's the game we're playing. I know. Listen, I've been doing this longer than everybody else. And guess what? I'm still here. I'll leave you with this. If you leave a person off on a desert island, I was going to say for 10 years, but let's say 19. And when you come back to that desert island 19 years later and he's still alive or they're still alive, what does it mean? It means they learn to adapt. But whatever the circumstances you bastards have for me, I'm adapting and never quit. And I'm telling you, they're scared. They're afraid you're going to find out that it all gets stolen because they haven't. Trump's never really said that to you, has he? But they're all running to this crypto bullshit too. Man, I'm scared to death for you because just like the crypto, just like the gold prepayment penalties, just like I caught, remember that Ponzi scheme that ripped off 404 elderly people, 3 of which committed suicide in a month? I caught that. And I'm telling you, it smells like a rat. Up and down. And the people selling it, I mean, it's on you. Listen, if you can't still Phil Godlewski and not who that is, and listen, Michelle Moore, I'm telling you who she is. Okay, Qrash.
Okay, until next time.